After doing a bunch of Uber bosses, I wanted a little bit of a palate cleanser. And so I dove into some Tier 17 maps, the most challenging content that Path of Exile has had in a while. And at first I was just kind of doing random selections of them, to see what I could do, roughly what the difficulty was, etc. I mostly focused on cheaper maps that had no particular rewards. And after testing, I realized that my build is capable of taking on most layouts without too much difficulty. And so I decided to do a test set of 50 maps specifically for the foil Watcher's Eyes that can have either 2 or 3 modifiers. At least as of the time I'm recording this video, it cost me an average of 6 divines per map, and each Watcher's Eye sold for between 10 and 11, especially 11 in bulk, which means yes, you can make quite a bit of money doing this, but you will need a very powerful build, as Uber bosses fell over in a way which a lot of things within these maps actually didn't. So just keep that in mind as we go through. And if you want to know more about some other money-making methods that I'm doing, or more accurately, some things I'm gambling on for fun at this point that just happen to be profitable, do be sure to get subscribed, leave a like while you're down there, and for now, let's get into it, starting with layouts, which is actually the most important part of this strategy, because a layout can make or break your build. In some cases, a layout can literally break your build by voiding you off of the face of existence. So, I did not do, nor will I be doing, any voided maps. It's simply not worth the risk, especially when you can disconnect and die. And another layout which I avoided is Brutal Solitude, the Val Pyramid map. It's increasingly lethal +1 portal, therefore quite easy to rip the entire thing if you're careless. If you get one at a steep discount, go for it, as it is definitely completable. However, I don't want to do it a bunch of times because it requires way too much focus. I also discontinued Tranquil Solitude, the beach map. I ran some of these initially, but Delirium slows everything down. So again, I would only buy it if you can for really cheap, because it takes about twice as long as anything else on this list, which time-wise isn't very efficient. One map that I ran quite a bit was Squalid Zenith Basilica map. The boxes can be rippy, especially if they fire Volcaustic Arrow. Get away from it immediately. And you need to do both the Expedition and the Blight. The Blight I found to be quite easy. This is because I'm playing a high DPS Penance Brand of Dissipation with Explodey effects. If you struggle with Blights, you should not do this map, as it must be completed and the pump only has 1 health. For the Expedition, it's actually really easy. You're required to pick up 3 remnants, but it says nothing about filling out the rest of the chain. So grab 3 easy remnants early on, and then spam your explosives off into nowhere. That way, you'll end up with a very easy end result. I would overall call this map medium speed and medium difficulty relative to the others on this list. Then we have the revealed Nexus Cemetery map, a really easy layout, no included bosses like Elder Slayers. The Expedition you can do just the 3 remnants and skip, but you only get 3 portals. It's fast and it's relatively easy, just don't be careless, because if you get something that's really bad for your build, it's quite easy to rip all 3, unfortunately. So I would call this fast, normally easy, but a little higher risk than some of the others. Then we have a Stained Trap, which is very much a trap. Between Union of Souls, the dead resurrecting, so you're never quite sure if you killed the last enemy, and the Seer Storms, it's an annoying and very slow map. I found that it often took me 5 or even 6 minutes to clear this, so I recommend avoiding it because it's not that you're likely to fail it, it's just going to take a really long time. My rating here would be slow but relatively easy, probably towards the medium end of difficulty, and again, super tedious. Another map that I didn't do a ton of, and don't particularly advise, is Dreamhaven, the Vault map. The porcupines are quite rippy, as you're effectively forced to shotgun yourself. It's quite fast if you have a tanky build, and so overall I'd say it's not the worst thing, just make sure you have very high physical damage mitigation and good recovery. I rate this as fast but relatively difficult. Then next up, the easy map is Raging Sanctum Silo. It's a very linear layout. You do have to kill the Elder Slayers, but the only one that should provide any difficulty at all is Drox. Not because he's actually that dangerous, but because he has a shield phase and it's easy to run past him when he's half dead rather than fully dead. Overall, it's a very fast map and the best layout. Watch out for the Culling Strike if you're playing a low-life build, and the boss might take a little bit. However, because everything else is so easy, I'd still give the map a fast rating and say if you can pick them up, this is the best one to buy in bulk. Just keep in mind that most people know this, so it's probably going to be more towards the expensive end. For the others, I'd often find them for 5 divines each, but this one was rarely ever below 6, and very often required you to pay 7 if you're going to buy it in bulk. But if we're talking the absolute best layout, it's Arid Swath, an iceberg map. This one wins because the affixes are super easy. It can go very fast so long as you get hit enough that you get the more movement speed multiplier. And the area only contains Einhar Exile Hunter, who's a really easy kill. Unfortunately, because it has the non-unique equipment found in area drops as currency, and does often drop quite a few raw divines, people definitely know this, and it's way too expensive to ever buy in bulk. So while it is the easiest and fastest layout, you're not really going to be farming this one. You'll only grab one or two here or there if you're lucky, at least based on the current market. If you want to know the live search that I used, I'll leave a link down in the description to the trade site with the exact filter that I had. Now, I did 50 of these maps. I paid an average of 6 divines each, so 300 divines invested. My average time to run was 4 minutes. The slowest maps were 4, 5, occasionally even 6. The faster were 2 and 3. If a map was consistently averaging me over 5 minutes, like Tranquil Solitude, I added it to my list of skip. The total time, counting a little bit of the testing, was 3.5 hours. In terms of buying the maps, that didn't actually take very long, because what I do is just farm something else while waiting for a bulk post to happen. And then I just buy the 10, 20, or even in one case, 30 maps that someone had for sale. If you do it this way, you will pay a little bit more. You could probably snipe maps one at a time for around 5 divines each, which technically would have saved me 50 divines. But then I'm spending like a half hour to an hour doing 50 individual trades. Whereas this way I did around 4 individual trades, and then a couple spares here and there for extra layouts that I was buying for testing purposes. I got back 50 of the unidentified Watcher's Eyes. They're item level 84 and can randomly have 2 or 3 mods. This means they're worth around 10 divines each unidentified, or 11 divines each in bulk, which we can estimate as a 550 divine return or 250 divine profit. Now, they sell incredibly quickly in bulk. You can just list them and they'll basically be gone almost immediately. So I feel pretty safe in saying that I made around 70 divines an hour by doing this strat, assuming that I sell it unidentified. But where's the fun in that? I mean, I've got 50 Watcher's Eyes here. Surely there has to be over 550 divines in return, right? Well, let's have a little fun, identify some Watcher's Eyes, and find out next. So here we've got all the Watcher's Eyes. Don't mind this. This is another project that may and may not turn into something. Here's a Forgotten, a couple Divines, and a Twisted, all of which dropped while I was completing the maps, which I guess is another 4-ish Divines in profit, but at this point, who's counting? So I'm going to go through these eyes and give some of my immediate gut feeling reactions as to whether it's valuable or not. And then after that, you'll see Editor 10 come in and give you the exact numbers on the ones that are valuable. Because there's 50 eyes here, I'm not actually going to go over every single one. I'm only going to go over the ones that look good. For something that's going to be 2 or 3 divines, maybe less, kind of trash, potentially just get vendored, those won't be worried about here. And so let's get into it. First up, crit chance affected by hatred. All right, well, that's a keeper right there. Also, it has 2 potentially usable second mods. Onslaught on Kill, not ideal, but it's very easy to enable. And max mana as extra max ES, a little niche, but very powerful. Just based on the hatred mod alone, I wouldn't be surprised if this was a 20 or 30 Divine Watcher's Eye. I know that sounds like a lot, but do remember, there's 550 divines here, so the money could evaporate pretty darn quickly if I get unlucky with the rest. See, Fizz Reduction Determination and Lightning Pen, it'll probably sell, but I don't think that's good. Fizz Converted while Hatred, good. Flask Charge Precision, good. Reduced Reflected, not good. So probably not super valuable, but again, might sell. Lightning Damage Wrath, Impale Pride, completely incompatible. Fizz from hits taken as cold. Zealotry crit chance unaffected by flammability. I mean, the Fizz from hits taken as cold is a decent defensive eye. However, I don't think it's going to sell for all that much. That said, it is 2 usable mods, so definitely a keeper. I think this is going to be my keeper pile. All right, max mana is extra max ES. Intimidate, Pride, really bad combo again. So ES on hit, that's good. That's automatically a keeper. Damage Leech while affected by Vitality. A little bit of an unusual combo, but I could actually see a build using both, especially if they're converting their Leech, or alternatively converting their Regen using Zealot's Oath and Ghost Reaver respectively. Crit Multi while affected by Precision. I mean, it's a single mod eye. It'll probably sell. Not worth much. Cooldown Haste, Fizz taken as Purity Eye. I don't know, would a Bama build use that? Possibly. Though I don't think it's going to be super popular, so again, in the niche category. Determination block, not great, not the worst. Damage multi-malevolence, pretty good. And then reduced reflect, probably useless, since it's most likely going to be an elementalist using this anyway. All right, ES on hit, ES recovery rate. I don't know if you usually use both, but individually, they're not terrible. Cold damage affected by hatred. Everything else is kind of garbage. Meh. Immune to shock. Unaffected. Oh, okay, that's terrible. That's probably vendor trash. All right, Arcane Surge, decent. Grace Evade, good. And then increased recovery, malevolence. I don't know how many people use that, but that is an interesting Watcher's Eye for a spellcaster trickster that's using both Grace and Zealotry. So I'll put it in the niche, but probably sellable category. And remember, these are just my raw feelings. I could very well be quite far off the mark with these. Hatred crit. Hatred crit Wrath fizzes extra. That's insane. That's super, super good. Penance brand builds, hey, I don't want to buy this for a lot of money. I don't know. I'm just going to guess 50 divines on that. Fizz reduction, good, but not particularly valuable, unfortunately. Let's see. ES recovery. Fizz is extra anger. I don't think there's that many anger discipline builds. Most of the anger builds are probably chieftains. Purity of Elements, Chaos Res, crit multi-anger, reduced... Oh, that's a really nice one, actually. Slightly niche defensive combo, and there are more ways to fix your Chaos Res than usual. But crit multi-anger and reduced extra is already super, super strong. That's a great way to be very tanky. Having the Chaos Res on top, yeah, someone's going to buy that for quite a bit. I'm going to guess at least 40 divines. All right, block, life vitality, impale pride, super niche, but technically 2 mod. Cast speed zealotry, good. Faster, wrong discipline mod. If I was ES on hit, that would be a sick eye. Unaffected. Hey, do you want to be unaffected by curses? Because, yeah. Unaffected by curses. Dot multi-malevolence, mana recovery, clarity. Righteous Fire of Arcane Devotion says hello, I think. I actually don't know if they use the no reservation only one or a thing or not, though. Maybe. I'll have to look into that more. Grace Vitality, niche defensive eye. The Grace defenses are actually pretty good. Blind Cold Pen, you know, this goes in the niche just because I'm pretty sure the Cold Pen mod off Hatred is really high demand. Crit Hatred again. All the rest of the mods are absolutely terrible, but I mean, it's Hatred, so it probably goes over here. I'm going to guess like 20 div minimum. ES on hit Intimidate, not quite compatible. Armor Determination, Cast Speed Zealotry, Fire Damage Leeched. Ooh, I think that's a good one. I think that's a really good one. It'll probably take a while to sell, but I could see someone easily using all of those mods. And if that's the case, especially since it's generic fire damage, there's got to be some super tanky like Chieftain or Hierophant or Guardian spellcasters that are going to pay like 100 divines for that. Cast Speed Zealotry, but it's only Cast Speed Zealotry. All right, Evade Grace, Fizz taken as cold, Fire Pen. I don't think the Fire Pen's that good, but for the other two, yeah, we're going to put it here. I'm estimating, So I'm estimating that these are like 5 to 10 divs each. These are like 20 plus. And at the very end, we'll do a rough count. Everything else here, probably worth it. Oh. Okay, another 3 mod eye. That's going over here. A lot of people are definitely going to use that, especially low life builds. So I think it's a really solid one. Hatred, Purity of Elements. Yeah, it goes in the niche. I could see people using it. Cannot be blinded. Fizz from hits taken as lightning. Unfortunate. Chance to blind Grace. Fizz from hits taken as fire. Purity of Fire. Pride. Is Purity of Fire meta enough that this is in the sellable category? I actually don't know. It could be like a 1 div eye, but it could be like a 5 div. Converted Evade. Do that many people use Anger? I don't think so. Oh, that's such a bad eye. There's so many better ways to get those things. All right. Not looking good for these. Consecrated Ground. Someone has to use one of those, but damaging faster is the least desirable malevolence. Fizz is extra. Okay, Anger, Purity of Fire. Yeah, that seems like something someone would use. I'm going to put that over here because it's a pretty meta combo. And I could very much see like an Avatar of Fire Penance brand build using that. So let's just say 20. Could be more, actually. Purity of Fire is really meta right now. Fizz's extra is good. Life recovery is good. All right. We'll go here. I'll bite. As you can tell, I probably shouldn't have ID'd these because it takes quite a bit of extra time. And then I have to go price check literally all of these eyes. Crit multi. Okay. Yep. I'm going to say it. 20 plus div on that. I'm still very much waiting to be wrong. If you have any guesses on the value of some of these, feel free to put them down in the comments below. Attack speed, precision, regenerate. So close. I don't know. Maybe a cast and crit build uses it, but probably not. Zealotry, recovery, fizz converted. Ooh. Slightly wrong mods. Chaos Res, purity of elements. Double purity of elements. Yeah, that's probably a 20 div eye. Fizz from hits, purity of lightning. Almost no one's using purity of lightning, though. And so, yeah. If I do some super rough, guessy napkin math, I'm going to assume all the eyes in the tab, oh god, 31 of them are worth like 0.5 div each, basically vendor trash, but let's just say 15 div out of all that. Now, let's just say 10, because most of them I'm probably not even going to sell. So that's 10 div back there. Remember, is about a 550 div value. Then the 5 to 10, let's assume another 50. Then for the high value eyes, I know I'm probably being conservative with all this, but I'm just going to assume 300. So my conservative guess is that I got 360 divines back by identifying 550 divines worth of items. However, I'm going to go price check it all, and I'll get back to you very soon. All right, so I've price checked everything, and here we go. A lot of the eyes were, in fact, low value. In fact, a lot of them were so bad they're not even in this sale tab, and they're just going to be vendored. As you can see, these are all worth a couple divines each, and I'm still a little conservative on the pricing because I want them to sell. I'm going to assume that all the cheap eyes, they're under 5 divines each, and they're going to go for, at most, 29 div, but let's say half of them sell for 15 and the rest just don't sell, go in dump tabs, get vendored, etc. Then we have the medium value eyes. There were 7 of these. This one, which ended up being worth about what I expected. This one, which ended up being worth way more, because it turns out Evade Grace is a pretty popular mod. We've got some Fizz Conversion, again with Evade Grace, really popular mod, pretty valuable. We even have this one, which the Hatred Conversion, being perfect rolled, probably most of the value there. Though that could be a little high, it could be like 10, 12 div. So I would estimate all these are worth up to 67, but we'll assume they sell for 50. Next, we have the high value eyes. There were 8 of these. These are 20 plus div each. Yes, Purity of Fire, incredibly meta. As it turns out, yeah, it's like 40-ish div just for any Purity of Fire mod. And because some of these have good secondary stuff, they could even be worth more. But it's kind of hard to tell because Mind Over Matter Purity of Fire isn't particularly common. A lot of people are using Sublime Vision. And we've got some Purity of Elements. It's really good to see these defensive mods finally being valued. The Anger wasn't even part of that, really. Hatred Crit, like I thought, a good bit of profit. Most of the Hatred Crits are 20 plus divines. A really interesting eye that I, again, don't know for sure if anyone wants, but it is 3 auras I could see being used together. Another really valuable defensive eye. And so if all 8 high-value eyes sell at the prices I listed them at, it's about 284 divines, but let's assume 250, because they won't all necessarily sell at exactly the price just as quickly as I checked them. And we have the 2 godly eyes. Well, godly's relative. It could have been multiple mirrors. Unfortunately, these weren't. So crit multi-anger, Fizz taken Purity of Fire. It's about 90 for the people that aren't using Sublime Vision. And then Hatred Crit Fizz as extra Wrath. Very popular for Penance brand. It's about 120 divines, and I'm pretty sure this one will sell for that price. So I'm assuming that they sell for about 200. Then we have the I have no idea eyes. This one, does anyone want this? I don't know. This one, maybe someone wants all three. And last up, this one, which is just a ton of defensive stats. I put a random price on it. I'm going to be honest, this may be completely wildly inaccurate. That's why it's in the question mark, question mark, question mark. I'm going to have to look into what builds might actually use this later. And so those are my experiences running 50 of the various foil Watcher's Eye maps, collecting all the Watcher's Eyes and identifying them. Overall, I would say you don't need to run very many of them if you don't plan to identify the eyes. In fact, a given map should return you value provided that you don't brick it. And at least if you're using a build like my Penance brand of Dissipation Slayer, which I will link down below, well, you will be totally fine in these maps. I didn't actually come close to bricking any except for Delirious with really bad mods and single portal maps. As for identifying, my total expected return without IDing was 500 to 550 divines and would have sold quickly, and I've made a whole bunch of trouble for myself by identifying it all and getting an expected return of 535. But hey, it might have been worth it because I could have hit a multi-mirror Watcher's Eye. With that said, if you're looking for something else to watch, you can check out my Penance brand of Dissipation build to figure out how I put all this together. Or if you want some more money-making strategies, I recently fought a bunch of Uber bosses and documented my results. Both of those will be linked up in the card and down below. Thank you very much for watching. A special thanks to my patrons and channel members for the continued support. You can help make videos like this possible, and you might even see your name on screen like these fine folks here. With that said, thanks for watching till the end. May your farming be profitable, and I'll see you again sometime soon.